Dice are rolling, darkness falls. Inside the GM Studios halls. Tabletop games where nightmares creep. In a realm where sanity is lost and weak. Welcome to the abyss where dreams shatter. Inside the GM studio, nothing else matters. Blood and chaos, the dark arts unfold. In the realm of role-playing, where legends are told.
All right. Welcome back to the side question episode of Inside the GM Studio, where me and my co-host field questions from the internet. In case this is your first time, I am your host, David.
I'm Matt.
All right, so what we do is I roll a die. It's a D20. It's a gray D20 with black numbers on it. Old school. OG. And Matt has a whole list of nonsensical bullshit on the internet that he's going to vomit at me, and we're going to fire from the hip. And I get a 13 this week. And let's see what Reddit... What say you, Reddit?
All right, 13. I'm going to bring this over here. All right, this one comes from Uncultured Swine BC on our Ask Game Masters. Great start. With the title, How Do You Balance Rule of Cool Moments with a Min-Maxer? There's a bit of a background I need to provide. This is a big hypothetical question, but it got me thinking, and I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts. So I'm running a Fallout 2D20 system, for those who know it. My party will be flying on a Vertbird, a tilt-rotor-style helicopter. They'll be flying through restricted military airspace with no flares or anti-missile systems on the Vertbird, making them susceptible to SAM turrets. The pilot will have to pass a few defensive checks to fly out of the way of the missiles. Now, depending on the player's choices and positions, some passengers will have to pass athletics checks to hold onto the aircraft and stay inside. What I'm anticipating is that a player or two might fail said athletics checks and plummet to the ground, losing all hit points in the process. This doesn't worry me because 1, my party will turn around to pick up their fallen comrade, and 2, I'm confident players can pass enough death saving throws until the party arrives. In Fallout 2D20, death saving throws don't eventually bring you back into the fight. You keep rolling until someone heals you. That said, my concern is my min-max player, a medical robot called Mr. Handy, that traverses with a single thruster below its waist. I figure that should this situation happen, the Mr. Handy character will ask if they can use their thruster at the last moment of impact to break their fall, whether to save themselves or another party member. They use their thruster to boost over enemies and onto high places, so this sounds like a legitimate question to me. This should be a really awesome rule of cool moment, but I have a few problems with this. 1, Mr. Handy thrusters are only made to hover. They're not rockets. Even if I did allow this, I think it would need to be a pretty difficult skill check and something would still get damaged on impact. Number 2, it feels game-breaking and unrealistic to have someone negate fall damage when their character wasn't designed to do that. Plus, this character has had little to no trouble in the game for a while. The way this player plays and min-max their character means they've barely been scratched. And that's just for combat. So I'm afraid of making them more powerful when I want to challenge my players, or at least not hand everything to them. So my question is, how do you GMs balance rule of cool moments with a character that I think needs to be challenged more?
Okay, that is a long preamble and a very specific situational question. However, I do like the heart of the question, because as we discussed in our Rule of Cool episode, part of my problem with the Rule of Cool is it seems like you just want to suspend what makes sense logically for a cool moment. And when you do that, you create precedent in the world um, that carries forward, right? Suddenly, what's supposed to be a cool moment, supposedly being a one-off, now becomes kind of etched into the law of things that are allowed. And frankly, the second time around, not going to be as cool and going to be more world breaking.
Hmm.
So I'm not a huge fan of allowing things that go outside the scope of the rules for the rule of cool.
Yeah.
Where I do like the rule of cool is where something's not covered by the rules already. And it would be particularly cool if someone could do this under a very specific circumstance that is not likely to come up frequently. Then I think it's pretty appropriate um, to do that. So um, that's kind of my preamble to getting into the meat of this specific thing.
Yeah, when it comes to
What
rule
I
of
would
cool
say,
stuff, there's a lot of games because I play a lot of cyberpunk games, and they're always just like rule of cool is always the best. Um, but when it comes to rule of cool stuff, I think David kind of went over it there. But if it's a one-time thing, sure. But what I've always found out is as soon as you let the rule of cool happen that one time, there's going to be in another 3 to 5 sessions later, that same player is going to say, "Well, you let me do it before," and it's just like,
right?
I know, but it was
Or,
that
or
cool
how is
in the
it?
moment.
How is it? Yeah, how is it different from when I did X? It's like
Right.
because and again, the second you do a thing, the second you do it a second time, it's no longer as cool. But now
Hmm.
it's like part of the rules set. So what I would posit is that if you're not gonna one, I think just don't, as a general rule of thumb, don't allow things that break the rules. Like rule of cool or not, you just have to be comfortable saying no. That doesn't seem like it makes any sense. Um, it would be very cool if it did make sense, but it doesn't. So like in this particular instance, he's got like a little thruster, and if he falls, he wants to use the thruster to not right fall and
Hmm.
take all that damage. But I would posit that there's some sort of middle ground there, right? Like so, for instance, the questioner is like, look, this is not a jetpack, right?
Yeah.
It's not what it is. It's used for hovering and going up small distances. So basically, that's a way of acknowledging that it does have some anti-gravity capabilities, right? It has to, otherwise you wouldn't be able to hover or go up short distances. So just say that there's like a middle ground, right? Like it doesn't stop you from taking damage, but it mitigates it. It's almost
Right.
like if you were to jump out of a building onto concrete, you're gonna die. But if you were to jump on off of a building onto, say, a 3-inch air mattress,
Or some
like you might
cardboard
not die.
boxes.
Right, you might not die, right? It might mitigate it enough so that you would be hurt, but you
Yeah.
wouldn't die. That's probably more what you're looking for is some sort of middle ground there. Like it's creating just like a air cushion that he falls on that slows his progression but doesn't halt it completely. And I would posit that's a lot of things that fall under the umbrella of rule of cool can probably be dialed back a little bit
Hmm.
because when they're turned up to 11, yes, they're cooler, but they're also, the reason you think they're so cool is because they are likely really cinematic, and there's likely real constraints on why that wouldn't be allowed. So
Yeah.
the whole idea of the rule of cool is antithetical to what it is that he's trying to do. He's trying to challenge a player more,
Hmm.
right? And the whole idea of the rule of cool is to give players freedom to kind of be playful and try out things that they might not otherwise try out because the rules say you can't do them, or it doesn't make much sense for you to be able to do that. So it's a way to kind of foster creativity. It's kind of under the umbrella of yes anding, right? You say
Yep.
yes to something because you want to incentivize that player. It doesn't sound like he has a a problem with that, right? If somebody's a min-maxer in particular, they have to accept that the yes for the rule of cool for them is not going to apply as much because they have dialed their character. Because the rule of cool is asking for an exemption to a rule. If you're going to be the kind of player that leverages every rule down to the letter, then you just have to accept that the GM's probably not going to exempt you from the rules very much. And so you do need to have those boundaries, but I would say just try to think of a way that you can maybe still have the moment and encourage the idea without allowing it to just be sink or swim, right? Like where you either don't take any damage from this and it's a totally saves you, or you just can't do it and it because they're frankly like if you did have some sort of thruster, it seems like that why wouldn't you pull that lever? Why wouldn't you try to use it if you were falling and why?
Oh, sure.
Right. And so it's like presumably he's saying this because the game does not define like precisely the height at which he can use the thruster, right? It's it's probably a lot like the gap in Tensor's floating disk.
Yeah.
Right? Like it floats and it floats this X height off the ground, and then you go, okay, but why did when it goes over like a lake, does it fall? Like it doesn't like if it can float, it can float. Like what are the parameters here? But Tensor's floating disk is pretty clear about if it goes over like a drop of more than like a foot or two, it goes down like, a drop off or whatever. Like it can go down a flight of stairs, but like it can't go over a covered pit, for instance, or
I was going to say,
uncovered pit.
and like with the thrusters here, it probably doesn't have the rules there because it was just thinking of the single character. It probably doesn't have a weight limit. Like you can hover, but can you carry anybody else with you? And if you can carry anything, how much can you carry?
Right.
I'm all for
what's a short distance?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. I'm all for the rule of cool. I love the rule of cool idea, but the rule of cool shouldn't negate consequence.
Yes.
With something like
Good way to
this,
put it.
it's an easy. There isn't. Well, I guess I shouldn't say it's easy. It's not easy for everybody. But for something like this, like David was saying with like the boxes or, the air mattress or whatever, sure, maybe you just take half of the damage that you would have, half of whatever your HP is at right now, take half of that away when you hit because of the thrusters, both of the characters. Or maybe you could do it, yes, you both land safely, but your thrusters were damaged until you can repair them with a successful roll, as well as a short rest or maybe even a long rest. But yes, I'm all for the rule of cool, but I don't think that a rule of cool should not be like consequences should not be neglected in the rule of cool.
Right, I agree. And there's actually probably the better way if you really wanted to go like by the rules, like what would the consequences be? Because probably doesn't detail like specific distances. But what I would say is, here's what I would do is I would say, like, let's say this character is on the ground, right? And they have this little thruster thing that allows them to hover and shoot up short distances, right? That's what he said, is like, to thrust up over things over short distances. What is the maximum height that you would allow that player to use that thruster to get to? Like, let's say it's 50 feet, right? So then basically, if he uses the thruster, I would say, what are the consequences of ignoring that 50 feet, right? They're 100 feet up, 200 feet up, right? 300 feet up. But basically, when he falls, it's like he fell 200 feet instead of 250 feet. Does that substantively change the equation? Would a character that fell 250 feet as opposed to 300 feet, would they still automatically lose all their hit points? Because he's basically just saying they're high enough up that there's no rolling for damage. Like if they fall, they're going to die. Like they're just going to be dead, right? And so let's ignore the fact that if they're really that high up that falling they just die. It seems like they're kind of gooified by the time they hit the ground, right? that makes the assumption that they have enough space to hit terminal velocity. So how much how much is it really mitigating the damage? Like the difference between, oh, like, the thrusters, they absorb the last 50 feet. It's like, right, but once you hit terminal velocity, it doesn't matter if you, like, for instance, it doesn't really matter if you fall 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet. Like they're both going to kill you. Right? It's like the difference between 1,000 feet and 2,000 feet is 1,000 feet. It's a lot of feet, but you've picked up enough mass that like it just doesn't matter. Like you're just gonna be dead, just as if you jumped out of an airplane. Jump off the top of a building or out of an airplane. Both are dead, and so it doesn't matter that you slowed the last like 100 feet down because you still have built up enough speed to die. So that's what how I would kind of look at it. Like, is there a reasonable gap that like the maximum distance that he could float with his thrusters would make a substantive difference to stop him from like crashing to the ground and just dying outright? And if the answer is no, that 50 feet or whatever it is, 100 feet, let's say, wouldn't make a substantive difference in him dying. Like if the vert bird was just 100 feet down, if the players fell out of it, they would still die. Then you just have to say no to that. I mean, you can do that, but it's not going to have a substantive effect on anything, right? So,
I was looking at the comments here, trying to find some good ones to go over. The majority of them are, you can tell this is Reddit and Ask Game Masters, because they're all just like, fuck them, say no, let a bird play a session or two with in a less crunchy game, but get a rules light game and see how they crumble. It's like, Jesus Christ, man, fucking chill out a little bit. And then here's one I found that I think is cool. It's actually it's from the OP and a commenter here. The commenter says, I disagree with you about the thruster saving him from the fall as a rule of cool moment. It seems like a blatant abuse of the ability to hover. It doesn't grant floating or flight. It doesn't battle terminal velocity. It doesn't have a NOS upgrade or some such. And then the OP writes, he says, nope, there's nothing else to it that wasn't specified RAW. The thruster's only designed to hover. And then this is where it got me, just like we said before. But I let them overclock it in the past, so I'm guessing they'll ask to do it again. And then
overclock it? Is that what he said?
Overclock it? Yeah, like a computer. You overclock your computer.
Yeah.
So yeah, you gave him that. You gave him that in before, and now he's afraid that they're going to use it again.
Yeah, but now you just have to say no.
Yep, and then the commenter goes after that one and says, "You're the GM. Just say no. You failed your check, and you didn't take any precautions. You fall and take damage the same way anyone else would. There's no negation. Sorry, my dude."
No, you don't even need to say sorry. You just you don't need to. This is let this be a lesson to less savvy game masters. Again, my reluctance to the rule of cool, as already stated, is that it kind of gets etched into the catalog of the rules, right? Mm-hmm. It sets precedent, like in a courtroom. But you still don't need to feel married to that precedent, right? You still don't need to say. You can just say, I shouldn't, like when someone says, how is this different than when I did this thing over here? Or you let me do it before. Then you just have to, don't say, I'm not letting you do it now, because that makes it seem like you're changing the rules arbitrarily for each situation. Mm-hmm. That is not good for your players. That is bad. But what you can and should say is something like, yeah, I thought about it a little more, and I shouldn't have let you do that back then. I shouldn't have allowed that. So this is the way it's going to run moving forward, right? There's nothing wrong with admitting that you got a ruling wrong, or that you got caught up in a cool moment, or you didn't understand a particular mechanic or something. Don't feel married to it. You can set a boundary now that just says, no, I'm not allowing that, and I'm not going to be allowing it moving forward. But don't change it for each instance because one suits your preferences and the other does not. That's bad. So that's the caution of the rule of cool, is that it is like an unofficial ruling. You're saying, I'm suspending the rules for this particular scenario. And it's like, the players do remember that, and they will try to leverage it whenever they can, because what you're doing is you're saying, this is allowed in my world under certain circumstances, and you have to be clear about what those circumstances are, or players will justifiably just go like, this seems like the same circumstance, like it seems similar enough that I should be able to do the thing that he allowed me to do before. You have to admit that you made a mistake, or be prepared to give a very detailed explanation as to why the situation the players thinks is the same, but is actually substantively different. I do this sometimes with my players. I just explain to them like, yeah, that it might seem like the same, but here's the difference. And then usually when I explain that to them, they go, okay, yeah, that does make sense. I wasn't thinking about it like that. It's like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I can say from experience, I've been that GM that has said, you know what, I let this happen in the past, and I'm sorry, I should not have done that, and we're not going to do this anymore. And usually the players are just like, you know what, all right, that's cool.
Yeah.
All right, I think that is going to bring this episode to a close, unless you got anything else to end on there, David.
No, I think we kind of addressed the substance of the problem there.
Yeah, I think so too. So we're just going to leave this one with a good night.
And good luck.
Yeah.